everyone. Greetings and welcome to Fighting for Economic Justice, Wage Theft Enforcement is Key to Public Safety, a case study between Travis County District Attorney Jose Garza, Public Rights Project founder Jill Habig, and community orgs LIUNA and Workers Defense. I am Kristen Jansen, Marketing Manager here at Public Rights Project, and I just wanted to welcome and thank you all for joining us today. This welcome comes from our 90 government partners and 100 fellows who are in dozens of cities around the country, helping us transform the way our laws are enforced. Today, you are going to hear great insight as we go behind the scenes of one of our close partners here at PRP, the Travis County District Attorney, as well as LIUNA and Workers Defense. If you haven't done so already, please introduce yourself via the chat box and let us know how you would finish this prompt. I am attending today to ensure. We have one from Marina. My name is Marina, and I'm joining today to deepen my knowledge of wage theft and bring strategies to fight back to my community. That's awesome. We have Jenica from Santa Rosa, California, is joining today to understand wage theft and how to better protect Black people of color and all workers. That's great. Today, we'll share a little bit of background about our work here at PRP and our partnership with the Travis County DA's office, and then we'll dive into the discussion with our guest speakers and do a Q&A from the audience towards the end of today's event. And in addition to the discussion you'll hear today, we invite you to follow Public Rights Project on each of our social platforms, which includes Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We also ask that you follow us on Medium, which is our special storytelling platform, The Public magazine. Here at PRP, we believe that together, working people in government can protect communities' most basic rights and freedoms, which is why The Public is intended for all audiences to be educated, engaged, and galvanized to make work work. You can also connect with us via our advocacy newsletter, Represented, to stay up to date on all upcoming events, PRP news, legal education, and policy insights. You can go ahead and use the QR code here on the screen, or you can sign up using the link I dropped in the chat. And now I'll hand it over to our amazing moderator for the day, PRP's founder and president, Jill Habig. Jill is an attorney and political strategist with experience in political campaigns, policy advocacy, and affirmative litigation and public law. She has been named an Ashoka Fellow, Open Society Foundation's Leadership and Government Fellow, a Draper Richards Kaplan Social Entrepreneur for her work building Public Rights Project, and most recently, an Emerson Collective Dial Fellow. Please help me bring to our virtual stage, Jill Habig.
Thanks so much, Kristen. I'm so excited to talk with our speakers today and just to welcome everybody for joining us. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. So I'm Jill Habig, as Kristen mentioned. I'm the founder and president of Public Rights Project. And my background is really in state and local government. I'm a civil rights and economic justice lawyer. And I spent my career before starting Public Rights Project almost 5 years ago, working in the California State Attorney General's office on children's civil rights and other civil rights issues. And then in the San Francisco City Attorney's office before that, working on economic justice and civil rights issues. So these issues are near and dear to my heart. So before we bring on the speakers, I want to just give you a little bit of background about Public Rights Project. PRP is a national organization, and our mission is to close the gap between the promise of our laws and the lived reality of marginalized communities. We'll hear a lot about that enforcement gap today and what it means for workers. But we work hand in hand with state, local, and tribal governments across the country to equitably enforce laws that protect people's civil and human rights. We build bridges between community organizing and government enforcement, and we seek justice for communities who are most affected by inequity, in particular, people of color, immigrants, and low-wage workers. If you'd like to learn more about PRP and our work, you can check out our 2021 Annual Impact Report, where you can learn more about our relentless fight for rights and highlights from the past year, including some highlights from some of our speakers who are featured in the report. If you're subscribed to our email list, you should have already received it, but if not, please subscribe with the link provided in the chat, and you can check out the report directly with the link in the chat as well. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce our incredible speakers. I'll start with Fabiola. Fabiola Barreto is the Austin Policy Coordinator at Workers Defense. She's a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, And at Workers Defense, she's helping to lead efforts to pass a City of Austin wage theft ordinance. Prior to working with Workers Defense, she worked as the policy director for Ana Maria Ramos in the Texas House of Representatives. Welcome, Fabiola.
Thank you so much, Jill. Super excited to be here with y'all.
Next, we have DA Jose Garza. He was elected the Travis County District Attorney in November of 2020. Jose is a former federal public defender, an immigrant rights activist, and a former leader of the Workers Defense Project. Jose brings to the DA's office extensive experience building power with communities of color, working families, and immigrant communities across Texas. During his tenure as ED of the Workers Defense Project, the organization won significant criminal justice reform in Travis County. They won paid sick leave policies in Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas, and advocated for the creation of a public defender office alongside community allies in Travis County. Welcome, DA Garza.
Hi, Jill. So good to be with you.
Thanks so much. Next, we have Stephanie Garakanian. She is a Public Rights Project Fellow, and an ADA in the Travis County DA's office. Stephanie began in September 2021, so she's new to the office, but you would not think so based on all of what she's accomplished just in her short tenure. So her work focuses on the prosecution of wage theft and other work-related crimes. And prior to joining the DA's office, Stephanie was special counsel at Workers Defense Project. So while at Workers Defense, Stephanie represented hundreds of victims of wage theft and took part in numerous campaigns to advance the rights of working people and immigrant families in Texas. And in 2018, she was elected to serve on the board of trustees of the Austin Community College District. And something very relevant for me as the mom of an 11-month-old, Stephanie is the mother of a very, very cute toddler, which I think we should have had a picture of or some sort that we could display at this point, but that's all right, we'll get there next time. And she's a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and Northeastern University School of Law. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, we have Jeremy Hendricks. Jeremy has been with the laborers union LIUNA since 2008. He serves as Assistant Business Manager and Legislative and Political Director for the Southwest Labor District Council. And Jeremy spends much of his time working to pass laws that protect and provide greater opportunities for workers, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
All right. So I'm excited to jump into the discussion with just a little bit of context for this case study. So we've asked each of our panelists to create a newspaper headline of what they would like to see in their community if this work was getting all of the attention that it deserves. So I will hand it off to Fabiola to kick us off with her headline.
My headline was "Wage theft is the most rampant type of theft."
My headline is that enforcing wage theft violations is key to our public safety.
My headline is that 1 in 5 Texas construction workers report not being paid wages that are owed to them.
My headline is "Exploiting workers will not be tolerated in Travis County."
All right, these headlines really say it all from our perspective. So before we jump in with our speakers, we just want to really share the perspective of Johnny Ramirez, who is a member of Workers Defense in Houston. We have a video we can play. Johnny was a construction worker at the University of Houston, and who's really grown to be an incredible leader working to improve working conditions on construction sites across Texas so that no other workers ever have to experience wage theft. So can we play the video of Johnny and then we'll jump in with our panelists?
This is the quadrant project of the University of Houston. This project started back in 2019. It's a project with the value of $123 million. There were a lot of things going on while we were here. One of them was the wage theft. I remember some accidents. They actually forced us to work while it was raining. There was a lot of mud. We had an accident just right passing this hallway that is right here, carrying some really heavy wood. And the farmers, they didn't do anything about it. They use one phrase, hey, if you don't like it, there's the door. If you leave, tomorrow I just have to get the phone and call somebody else that was willing to do your work, and even for a lower rate that we're paying you right now. University of Houston is a public university, so is money of the community involving. So we got the right to get paid what we call scale that we were not getting paid for. You're ending up doing a lot more things than what you're supposed to. So the companies actually are making way more money than what they're actually paying us. Why would we have to be here today on one of the biggest institutions in Houston that had morals and values, but they're doing totally the opposite? Work Defense approached one of our coworkers. And after that is when I actually went to an official meeting and see that was already a claim set out for wage theft. That's how I actually started my relationship with Work Defense. Everything started with us trying to talk to the companies, and the companies didn't want to listen to us. So we went up the next scale. We were talking with the main contractor. The main contractor kind of laughed at us at the same time, like, who does this guy think they are? Like, they're not going nowhere. Like, nobody's gonna listen to them. So we went to the main head of the project, Renee Couture, University of Houston, the president. But Ms. Couture says that she didn't have control over it, that it was not her responsibility, that it was the contractor. The contractor says that it was the subcontractor. The subcontractor said it wasn't his responsibility, it was the other part that they hired. So it was one point where they were passing the guilt between one each other. It was like, okay, so who's gonna hear us now? Who's gonna listen to us? But Work Defense had made an entire plan to work.
We are the ones sweating. We are the ones that are getting the wage stuff. So you need to sit down with us. We demand you sit down with the workers and get the view from the first hand.
And I remember during my lunchtime crossing the street and join my co-workers and the organization for the first action, and I had my foreman right there just staring at me with a really like angry face.
UFH, listen to me, to us, the workers, the students, the community. We demand justice for workers.
I really felt proud when I started taking part of the actions with the other workers. There were students, there were teachers. That was a breaking point. It was when they actually started paying attention to us. We saw that change.
How is it that this institution has been disregarding, trampling on and one of society's most essential tenets? You work and you get paid. Right. These workers worked. They didn't pay.
It feels amazing to know that you have an entire team that can support you and that you can rely on. And that's what I feel with Work Defense. It's taking me to do things that I never expected, and I was like, I liking it. So who knows where you're gonna end up with PDL. I'm happy to be a part of Work Defense. I'm proud actually to be part in that actually got to know this organization.
All right. I don't know about you all, but I got chills multiple times during that video. So I think Johnny really says it all about why this issue is so important for communities. So without saying anything else, because I think you said it all, Jose Garza, I would love to just turn to you and hear a little bit more about, just setting the scene for what it was like when you were first taking office as a new district attorney trying to prioritize this issue. What were some of the most significant challenges you were facing?
It was an incredibly powerful story, and we know that it is one of many similar stories all across our state and all throughout Travis County. So I'm so grateful for the courage and strength of working people and the organizations who support them. When I took office at the beginning of last year, our number one priority was to implement policies and strategies that would keep our community safe. And we know what keeps our community safe. It is stability. It is access to good jobs, access to quality healthcare, access to good schools. And we know what destabilizes our communities, what destabilizes working families. We know that crimes like wage theft destabilize our communities and make us less safe. I think most of the people joining us today have a pretty good sense of what wage theft is. But if you don't, it takes many forms. And at the end of the day, what wage theft is when you ask a person to come work, they do work and they don't get paid. That is the core of wage theft. It's a crime in most jurisdictions. It's a crime here in Texas. And it's the kind of crime that, when committed, makes us less safe. So enforcing wage theft is a really important part of creating stability in our community and ensuring that our community is safe. So one of the biggest challenges we have faced is reorienting our criminal justice system so that it can prioritize strategies and approaches that are rooted in those core tenets, that stability is safety, and that we should be enforcing the laws that improve and increase stability in our community.
So you talked a lot about, why this is such an important issue and why it's key to public safety. But can you help set the scene a little bit about what were the skills and resources that you felt like you needed in your office in order to do this work? I know, in particular, you launched an economic justice enforcement initiative to kind of centralize your office's work around economic justice and wage theft and unsafe working conditions. But what did you need internally in order to make that happen?
Well, I think to understand what we needed internally, it's probably helpful to talk a little bit about the context of the state of Texas. I think we're going to get into this in a little bit, but what may be helpful for folks to know is that wage theft has clearly been unlawful in the state of Texas since at least 2011. Even though that was the case, wage theft violations have very rarely been enforced in the state, if at all. And in order to break that cycle of non-enforcement, we knew there were a couple of key things we would need. First of all, we would need a team who understands this issue, who understands the law, who understands the impact that wage theft has on working families, and more than anything, who understands the people most impacted by wage theft. We needed someone who had trust and could develop trust with victims of wage theft in our community and with the organizations that work so hard to prevent it. And so, we could not be more fortunate to have this partnership and to have Stephanie on our team.
Yeah. So speaking of Stephanie is our PRP fellow, as I mentioned. So Stephanie, I'm going to kick it over to you. I'd love to hear, you came into the DA's office with a background already from workers' defense in workers' rights law and with wage theft. So share a little bit about, why is the office's relationship and collaboration with organizations like LIUNA and workers' defense so important to the economic justice initiative in the office?
Yeah, I don't think we could do this work without those partnerships. We certainly couldn't do it successfully. I view those organizations really as the first responders in labor enforcement, the spaces where workers who are impacted by wage theft first turn when they're seeking advice and seeking help. And so that's one of the reasons why those relationships were so important to cultivate and to really nurture in this role. It certainly takes so much courage for any worker to choose to defend their rights, oftentimes confront an employer where there's a huge power differential between those parties. And what I have really seen in my experience is the degree to which these sorts of organizations are building community. They're building strength together, and they are so effective at supporting workers along this journey as they seek to defend their rights. And we know that support is so essential in really any sort of criminal prosecution, but certainly in instances of wage theft.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. That the idea that what we've seen from our partners around the country is that sometimes these breakthrough laws are passed, like a new minimum wage ordinance, a wage theft law, a paid sick leave law, et cetera. But then just the fact that the office has authority to prosecute these crimes or to civilly address them, if it's a city attorney's office, doesn't mean they actually have the relationships with the community groups to get information to actually bring those cases. So that community relationship piece, I think, is so important. So let's dig into that a little bit more. Fabiola, I know, for 20 years, Workers Defense has been working on behalf of folks like Johnny. So this is not new to Workers Defense. And, it's particularly important in Texas, where we have more workers at or below the federal minimum wage than any other state. And it's the most uninsured state in the country. So can you talk a little bit about why, from your perspective at Workers Defense, wage theft enforcement is a public safety issue and how your organization approaches the issue?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Joe, for the question. And again, thank you so much for inviting myself onto this panel. Let me give a little bit of information as to what Workers Defense is, and I think that'll be able to answer some of the questions. So Workers Defense is a membership-based organization. As you saw, we have members in Houston. We also have members in Austin and in Dallas. And we organize with low-wage immigrant construction workers to raise working standards within the state of Texas. And in a study that we did in collaboration with the University of Texas at Austin, we saw that 1 in 5 construction workers have reported wage theft. And, as DA Garza said, it does take various forms, right? So you can be failing to pay the minimum wage, you can fail to pay overtime, uncompensated breaks, working off the clock, et cetera. So there are a lot of ways that an employer can commit wage theft. The average amount that's stolen from a worker is $960. And that's rent, that's food for the week, that's gas money. So if you're not able to have those wages, you're not able to pay your gas, you're not able to take your kids to school, there are just so many rippling effects that happen whenever somebody is not paid their wages. And so I think that's really important to highlight. And especially within Central Texas, that has such a booming construction industry. Every day you're seeing towers, you're seeing tech companies that are building, but low-wage immigrant construction workers aren't reaping any of the benefits. And so, quite honestly, to make matters worse, if somebody comes up and says, foreman, I'm not being paid my wages, I'd like to have a discussion with you about this. Often the conversation goes, well, you're an undocumented immigrant. What is holding me back from calling ICE right now? Or, you know what, let's not even have this conversation. I'm going to call ICE. So I think it's really important to be able to highlight that and highlight how various employers have used immigration status as a form of retaliation, which is also, it discourages folks from coming up. And so I think it's really important to highlight that and how that is a part of public safety discussions, or should be a part of public safety discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that immigrant worker and undocumented worker piece of this is so critical, definitely in Texas, but not just in Texas. We see it all across the country. So I know we're going to dig in a little bit deeper on that in a minute. But first, I just want to go to Jeremy. Your headline, exploiting workers will not be tolerated in Travis County. That says it all to me. I want to see that headline somewhere soon. So can you just talk a little bit more about LIUNA's work and how you see wage theft enforcement as a public safety issue in Travis County from your vantage point?
Absolutely. And thank you, Jill, for the question. And thank you for inviting me today. Again, my name is Jeremy Hendricks, and I'm with the Laborers International Union of North America. And we're a union that helps construction and service workers find a better life. And we're very pleased to provide families supporting wages, benefits, and real careers with training opportunities to ensure a safe and secure job site. And I'm absolutely here today because I want to live in a city. I want to live in a county. I want to live in a nation and a state that won't tolerate exploitation of workers, which is happening far too often. I think we're all here because we're frankly mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. The laborers union and other unions are often that first step out of poverty and horrendous working conditions. And that's been alluded to before, but Texas is the most dangerous state for construction workers. It has more wage theft. It has more misclassification of workers. Unfortunately, for too long, 1 in 5 construction workers in Texas have had to endure wage theft. And that's why the laborers union have dedicated ourselves to working alongside these partners to ensure rest breaks, critical safety training, fair pay, and really to get the respect that they deserve on a job site. For far too long, even in Travis County, even in what folks think is the most liberal city in the state of Texas, workers have had to endure this wage theft, these unsafe working conditions. For too long, we had elected officials who claimed to be Democrats, but that really didn't care about the mistreatment of workers and never sent a message to employers that exploiting workers won't be tolerated. And unfortunately, for far too long, overworked and understaffed nonprofits and folks that work for unions have really had to be the eyes and ears. They've had to bear the burden of doing this work on behalf of workers to really point out these egregious violations. And sadly, more often than not, these criminal violations of the law went completely unpunished and unnoticed. And it becomes, a race to the bottom, because this helps bad contractors get ahead, and it hurts good contractors, so that good contractors have no choice but to try to get in line with that race to the bottom, where becoming an exploiter of workers is part of that equation. And so that's why we could not be more excited to be here today with you all, to work with DA Garza and his amazing staff, because it's far past time this work starts. So thank you again.
I really appreciate your point about the burden being so much on the workers. I mean, I think we think about lack of enforcement in this area, and especially, in state and local governments not getting involved. And I think what that really does, when you really get down to it, is that puts the burden on every single individual worker to try to fight for their rights, even if the companies are actually doing the same thing to hundreds or thousands of workers. And so a lot of the work that DA Garza is doing, along with Stephanie and others, is really trying to take some of that burden off of workers and put some of that responsibility where it should be, which is on government and prosecutors' offices to actually take this issue seriously. So I appreciate you highlighting that. So I'm going to turn to the DA and Stephanie just to dig in a little bit deeper. We've talked about why this issue is important, and I think that rings really clear to everyone. But what have been some of the kind of foundational building blocks that you've had to put in place to actually make this intention a reality in your office, to create a pipeline of cases to start prosecuting wage theft? One of the things we hear from offices around the country is the hardest part is getting started. If they haven't done these cases before, they're not hearing the information that they need to actually start bringing the cases. So how did you put the pieces together, or take us behind the scenes a little bit?
Well, I think there are two core pieces. One is that we have a responsibility to do the work to build trust with communities that experience wage theft, that are victims of wage theft, to make it clear that if a person in our community is a victim of wage theft, if they report that crime, we will take it seriously, we will investigate it, and we will prosecute it. That is a change, and I think most people don't assume that that's what will happen, because for so long, that's not what happened. And so the first key element is to make sure that our community has faith and trust that we will do this work. The second piece is actually just what you were talking about. We have an obligation and a responsibility to begin to alleviate the pressure and the burden that working people have carried for so long. For most criminal offenses, we have law enforcement partners who investigate allegations of criminal activity, complete a full investigation, and then provide our office with the evidence. For multiple reasons, that kind of law enforcement infrastructure doesn't currently exist with respect to wage theft. And so, we for too long have really depended on the most vulnerable members of our community to, in addition to working to support their families, to also be investigators and law enforcement officers, and that really has to change. And so the second piece is really beginning to build out the enforcement infrastructure with governmental partners and other partners to make sure that every working person can have faith that we will take wage theft seriously, and every working person can have faith that they are not alone.
think that's really important. Stephanie, tell us more about the nitty gritty.
So just to add on a little bit to what DA Garza shared, really, when I came into this role, a lot of what we needed to start to do was figure out what our internal infrastructure inside our office was going to be able to support the investigation and prosecution of these cases. And so that included making sure that we really felt like we had a strong legal foundation, because this work really hasn't happened to the degree that it should have happened in Texas. I did notice that some colleagues from El Paso are on the webinar, and I did want to give them a shout out because they really are the only other office in the state that I'm really aware of that really has tested what it means to criminally prosecute these cases and really paved the way. So they deserve credit for that. So, we wanted to build our foundation, build our intake kind of streams, right? And that would be, what's our internal reporting mechanism? How are we really making sure that our partners who might be those first responders know what our processes are, know what we might be looking for, know how to refer cases directly to us. And part of that work also involved reintroducing myself to a lot of community partners in this new role, making sure that I understood and they understood what it means for these cases to be enforced on behalf of the state versus, in a civil context where there's direct representation. And I'll also just add that, wage theft is a crime. There's also instances in which non-payment of wages is a civil violation. And I think the work that we're doing isn't just making sure that our office is equipped to take these cases and prosecute those cases when we have jurisdiction and when we feel like criminal conduct has happened, but really understanding that's what's needed in our community is just a much more vibrant enforcement infrastructure, right? And so in coalition with our partners on the call and many others in our community, really taking a broader look at, how can we be doing more as the DA's office, but also we identify existing enforcement gaps. How can we bring other government partners into the fold? There's really exciting conversations that are happening currently with our new civil rights office at the city of Austin. And so I think we view our responsibility not just as making sure that we are equipped to take these cases, but really that we are adding to a broader infrastructure system where we have other civil local partners working in conjunction with us, in conjunction with other state and federal partners to make sure that people who experience these violations have a place to go to enforce their rights in those instances.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Thank you for raising that. So I want to take a step back a little bit. So we talked about all the work that you've done within the office to set up this system. But this didn't happen overnight, right? Jose, you needed to actually get into office. You needed to make sure you had jurisdiction. There's all of this groundwork that has been laid over the last decade, really, in a long history of collaboration among this group. This is the first time you all have met each other, right? So Fabiola, can you talk a little bit about the timeline of all the work that led to this point where DA Garza was building this infrastructure in his office?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad that there's a little figure here so everybody can see. But as you said, it is not something that happened day to night. Even this is a very small snapshot of our victories, but there's just so many portions in which we can talk about what went wrong and other victories, et cetera. But focusing on wage theft today, in 2011, for example, we had a major win at the Texas Capitol where wage theft, as DA Garza, I think, pointed out earlier, was seen as a crime in the eyes of Texas. So at the very least, if we can start at 2011 and wage theft is 100% a crime within the state of Texas. And that was done in coalition with Workers' Defense, other labor organizations, just a lot of people going in and showing that we will not be tolerating wage theft in any form in the state of Texas. And it sprung a lot of advocacy in the state of Texas, as well as in Travis County and in other portions of the state. Now, again, as I was saying, that we had to kind of tackle this problem in all fronts. In 2012, Workers Defense launched our Better Builder Standards, which provides a standard for wage and workplace safety for construction workers. And again, this is kind of tackling it from the developer side, seeing who our power players are and how we're able to make sure that workers' rights are being put at the forefront whenever contracts are being made, and et cetera. So this was a fantastic way for Workers Defense and other labor organizations such as LIUNA to come in and advocate for this over at the at the county level and the city level, to make sure that workers are receiving fair wages, are receiving workplace compensation in case of any sort of accidents, all of that good stuff that should be required, however, in the state of Texas are not. After that, we see that in 2013, we also worked to pass a misclassification bill. And, just so folks on the call know, in Texas, misclassification is the cause of Texas losing out on $45.5 million in lost unemployment tax revenue. Tax fraud, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's tax fraud. And so this was just making sure that employers are following the law. And so I think that's a big thing that we'll be seeing, a recurring theme here, where we're just trying to make sure that people follow the existing law. In 2016, we see that the City of Austin City Council passed a living wage ordinance. This was just to make sure that a loophole was closed and subcontractors abided by the living wage in the city of Austin, which was really exciting. And, it just brings everybody up whenever workers are able to be paid what the living wage is in the city that they're living in. We have two more. And so in 2018, we see another higher standards being placed within the city of Austin, and that's paid sick leave, which during COVID, we know was very, very necessary for folks to be able to take time off whenever they're feeling sick, to make sure that contagion is low, and that they're able to prioritize their own health. And so I think that was very important. However, it currently is in the courts right now. So, we'll have to wait and see what the future of it holds. And, flashing forward to present day, in January, the city of Austin's city council passed a wage theft resolution. So it's starting the groundwork to be able to have a full-fledged wage theft ordinance to make sure that bad employers, to be very specific, are held accountable if they do commit any sort of wage theft. Because it's one thing to have all of these fantastic laws that say you cannot commit wage theft. It's another thing to make sure that there is accountability when it happens. And so we want to make sure that portion of this was closed. And so, throughout this timeline, you see that we're tackling it on different fronts, through the advocacy route, through the developer route, and finally, where we're at right now, making sure that accountability takes place whenever wage theft does happen. I'm not sure if Jeremy, you have anything that you want to add. I know that we've been working on a lot of this together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been said before, but I'll just reiterate that we're really starting in Texas from such a horrible, horrible place that it's really taken all these concurrent actions going on kind of at the same time, where we kind of leapfrog the law along to try to get things in a better place for workers. And the other thing I'll mention is that critical through all of this, of course, we're all amazing advocates, but it took members, it took real people that have really been affected coming to city council, coming to the county commission, to really persuade what were progressive, elected officials that should have already been doing something about this. But you really, and I think that video that you showed earlier really pointed that out, that these are real people that are really being affected, that are really being hurt, that their families are really getting kicked on the street or not being able to pay their bills or health care. And so it's really critical that that those elected officials hear from the people being affected, and hats off to those folks for showing up in force, members of both WDP and other allied groups, but also of our labor unions.
Yeah. So, I just want to acknowledge this is a huge amount of victory over the last 10 years. And I know that each there are smaller dots in between this timeline, and a lot of organizing and effort went into each of them. So I just want to congratulate you all, because this is just a testament to the power of this coalition. But with all of these policy victories, Jeremy, tell us a little bit more about what did DA Garza's election mean in the context of these policy wins? How did you think about the election in the context of all these policy fights?
Well, I mean, we've all been great advocates, as we've already said. We've had some great policy wins, but really, it's not just about reporting these instances of wage theft and other violations. It's not about going to city council. It's about having someone that will actually enforce the laws. And unfortunately, when we and other allied groups went to our district attorney, when we went to our police and others, we got basically a door shut in our face, that they weren't willing to go after these developers that is creating this Texas miracle, this booming economy that we have. So that's really the reason that we came together as a community to elect DA Garza, because we knew we would have a true leader on this issue, and someone that will lead on other fundamental progressive criminal justice issues. We knew that we would have a leader who would use every tool available to highlight this problem and bring the full force of the law to bear on violators. And really, we knew that we had a leader who had personally seen the damage that this does, the damage unsafe working conditions does, the people that are crying from losing their spouse or their father or mother because of unsafe job sites. And really, we knew that we had someone that would stop this deference to business over workers in this community, because we would have someone that was compassionate, was caring. And even in Austin, we really had to elect someone at both district attorney and county attorney who would work for real change. And because we knew that old guard establishment wasn't going to do it. And I think our real hero moment is when we found our community hero in Jose Garza. Our hero moment is when we won on election night, and Jose and his staff got to work day one to address this problem and so many more. And really, I think a big hero moment will be when the entire community sees wage theft eradicated, when contractors and employers get the loud and clear headline message that this ain't going to happen anymore in Travis County. And then really we hope that spreads, because once we get contractors to start doing things right, hopefully that's their business model.
Yeah.
If I can, Jill, I have to jump in here to refute all of this praise. No, but I just
I was wondering if you were blushing.
I am. But I do want to just point out that which I think everybody knows, that which I think is obvious, but I think is nonetheless really important to make clear. All of us are here. All of us collectively are able to be in front of you with this record of success, with much work to do ahead of us, but with this record of success, because for the last 20 years in Austin, working people have had the courage to raise their voice, to take their fight to City Hall, to take their fight to the ballot box, and really to risk everything, to risk their jobs, their well-being, in many cases to risk retaliation. Our work and this moment that we are in is a culmination of the fight and the struggle that working people in Austin have been at the center and forefront of for well over 2 decades.
Absolutely. And I think, I know you're still early in your tenure and there's more work to do, but we've seen some wins already. Fabiola, do you want to share a little bit about some of the wins that have come out of this work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Workers Defense, for example, we have been able to recover over $2 million in stolen wages within our 20-year period, which is incredible, especially when, as Jeremy highlighted, that could mean rent, that could mean gas, that could mean so many things to families. $2 million is an incredible number. Don't get me wrong, but the $50 wins, the $500 wins, the $100 wins, it never fails to just astound me at, how much $500 can take you, right? And members, members can see that $2 million number and also be astonished. However, whenever they're between having to pay for, say, a medical bill, for example, and had their wages stolen, and what they need is what they were earning, what they believed they received, and in fact did receive, or should have received, I should say. It doesn't matter how much money they're getting back. What matters is that they get what they were working for, correct? And so I just wanted to put that out there. And I guess another hero moment truly is the fact that we are in 2022 and we are currently working to make this wage theft ordinance happen. The wage theft resolution passed, and we're very excited about that. And so we want to make sure that come August, whenever the ordinance comes out in front of City Hall, that our members are out there sharing their stories, letting people know how important wage theft protections are for them, but more importantly, towards the greater community, because it does affect all of us. It affects us in the tax fraud sense. It affects us with creating safety within our communities. And so whenever I think of our hero moments, I truly do look back at our members and all the work that they've been doing to make sure that the greater community in Austin is safe.
We have lots of great questions, so I'm going to jump into the Q&A in a minute. But before I do, DA Garza, Stephanie, is there anything else you want to add about what's next for your office? Any victories you want to share, or anything else you want to tout from the work you have ongoing in your office?
I'll just say generally, what's next for us is to continue with the sometimes tedious, but for us exciting, detailed work of building out a real enforcement infrastructure that people can have faith and have trust in. And there is no one I trust more to carry out that detailed work than Stephanie, and it's why our partnership with PRP on this has been so huge.
Yeah, some of us refer to Stephanie as the dean of the PRP fellows. So, and they're all incredible.
Not at all surprised.
There's nothing to take away from the others. It's just a testament to how amazing Stephanie is.